So today it's very nice that everybody's here. It's good to see everybody coming to the BSV and practicing, and thank you to everybody that's here, that's working behind the scenes, doing all the things that need to be done in the video, in the kitchen, all these kinds of things, putting everything together. It's really nice to see how harmonious the whole process is. And so what I thought I'd talk about today is how we practice, how we actually practice when we are busy or when we have a lot going on. Because the reason I thought I'd talk about this is because, over the last week I've had a few things on and moving around and doing this and doing that, and I didn't have as much time myself personally to do as much formal practice as I usually like to do. And for me, being busy, I'm a monk. I'm not really that busy. I don't have that many responsibilities, but things change in life. And I came down here and I got here and the AGM was on and so many people on the committee, and there's so much happening, so much work going on, and so much preparation that has to go into this. And it just made me reflect over the last few days. I was like, well, if you don't have as much time for formal practice, how do you practice when you're running up against these different situations in the world? How do you keep your mindfulness firm when you're having to deal with so many different things and so many different problems? And so one thing that I like to do when I don't have as much time to do formal practice is to look and keep my mindfulness on my own experience and the sensory input that's coming in to me. Because whatever we do in life, how we move throughout the world, the one thing that we do have is our experience. And what our experience is made up of is all the sensory input that's coming in, sights that are coming in, sounds that are coming in, smells, all these different inputs actually coming in. So our whole experience, our whole life is made up of sensory input. So we can use this as a means to practice and to keep our mindfulness in the present moment, and use it as a way to strengthen our wisdom as well. But there's a problem with that. There's so much going on. You're just bombarded by algorithms trying to get your attention. You're bombarded with advertising. You're bombarded with delicious foods, great, all these things, bombarded with cars and things moving around you. So how do you actually use your sensory experience to practice the Dhamma when it can seem so overwhelming and so constant? And so the way that you can do this is by keeping your attention at the sense, what we call in Buddhism, we call the sensory doors. So the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind, and keeping your awareness here and just noticing what's happening. But maybe before I launch into that, what do I actually mean? Because I'll be using a few terms in this. I'll be calling things like sensory objects, sensory input. What do I mean when I talk about this? So there's the modern understanding of what happens when we experience sensory inputs, things that come in through the senses, and there's also the Buddhist understanding of sensory input, and there's not really many differences between them. The main difference is that in modern understanding we have five senses: the vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. We have these five big ones, but in Buddhism we have these six, which is we add the mind onto that. So in our modern understanding, we have these five big ones, and these are the things that really are important to us and salient and that are crashing into us at any one point. But we also have these other processes that are going on in the background as well that we're not really as perceptive of, but they're helping our body and the organism move through space and to survive. They're things like our sense of balance, our sense of pain, our sense of vibration, our sense of temperature. All these different kinds of things. They're all working under the surface along with the big five. And what's happening at that point in time is everything's coming in and we're trying to interpret all these different sensations in different ways and things that are going on externally that we see and hear and all this, but then there's other things internally. And from a very mechanical standpoint, this is physically what's happening out there in the world with the body that's interacting in the world. But the way that we're perceiving the senses, this is very, very different. There's something different happening there. And from the modern understanding of the way that we perceive the senses is our brains interpreting all this input that's coming in, that's constantly coming in. And what's actually happening at that point is the brain is just interpreting all these signals. It's not that they're exactly this way. So it's not like the brain sees sights. It's not that the brain hears sounds. It's just a stream of electrical activity that the brain's trying to interpret and build its best guess about what's happening outside in the world. So it's building up a model. It's building up a representation of that. So a lot of the times, most of us think, okay, well, I see this red cushion, and everybody else looks at the red cushion. It's like, okay, we all think that we're experiencing this red cushion in exactly the same way. But perception, it's a funny thing, it's an individual thing, because we're continually constructing the world. My experience of that red cushion is very, very different to everybody else's. We might think that it's exactly the same, but there's some differences there. And this is dependent on a lot of things, dependent on the way that we're interpreting the world, but then also different ways that our sensory modalities blend together. So we have things like, say for example, you have some people that they might see what we could consider to be a color, but they might hear it as a sound. And there's something called synesthesia, where the senses blend together and you have a different kind of sensory experience. So what we're perceiving in the world, we might think that this is the most true interpretation of reality, but what is actually happening is that the brain's constructing this, and it's maybe not the exact interpretation of reality that we think it is. And so you have that, and that's all well and good. It's cool to know these things, but how does that actually help you with your practice? What's that got to do with anything, really? So this is where the Buddhist understanding of sensory inputs comes into play. And the Buddha outlined that we have he went into great detail about the senses and how we actually interact with them. And the Buddha said that we have external sense bases and internal ones. So we have, say for example, we have objects out there in the world, or we have sounds. So we have the external parts and the internal parts. And so we have for that we have, say for example, the eye and the forms that are in the world, the ear and sounds, the nose and smells, the tongue and tastes, and the body and the tactile sensations of feeling. But again, in the Buddhist conceptualization of the sense processes, he said that we have the mind as well, the mind and the mind objects. And what the mind's doing is it's becoming aware of things like thoughts. It's becoming aware of things like all the different mental states that we're having. So the Buddha had and any kind of Indian epistemologies about how the senses are, is they have the six sense bases. But also what the Buddha did on top of that is outline a process of what's happening when we're experiencing these things. And what the Buddha said about the six sense objects and six sense bases is that whenever there's let's just use the eye. The eye's the easy one to eye and vision. It's the most easy one to explain. Say, for example, when the eye sees a form out there in the world, that because there's contact between the two, the I sees a form, there's a consciousness arises, what we call I consciousness. And you have a conscious perception of that. And due to that conscious perception and the contact between the two, then you have some kind of feeling arise. So you have either a pleasurable feeling, or you have a painful feeling, or you have a pleasant or unpleasant, or good or a bad feeling. Dependent on those processes, you have this feeling. And it also can be neutral as well. You just don't really feel anything when you see these things. But dependent on the feeling, you have a craving for that. You see something you like, and I like this thing. I want to look at more of it. Or I hear this nice sound. I want more of it. Or I hear this. Somebody says something bad to me. I don't want to hear that. That's terrible. So we have a craving for this feeling that we have, and so the Buddha outlined that process. But so why is that process important? Well, the Buddha stated that this is the process, that it's just an automatic process that keeps happening, and this is what builds up our sense of identity. This is what builds up our sense of self. This is what builds up this thing that is, we have this feeling that this is me, and this is me experiencing the world, and I like these things in the world, or I don't like these things in the world. This is what builds up this identity. And the Buddha gave a very, very powerful teaching about this, and sort of warned of the dangers of this. There's a Buddhist sermon called the Fire Sermon. Sorry, I can't remember the Pali name for it. Anattalakkhana. No. Sorry, I can't remember the name of it. It's a good say. In English, it's called the Fire Sermon. I can't remember it, but so the way it goes, the Buddha, just not long after the Buddha became enlightened, he was traveling through India, and he met a whole group of fire worshippers, ascetics that will worship fire. And he stayed with the fire worshippers for a while, because he was only newly enlightened, so he didn't have a following of monks at that point in time. He was just traveling around teaching. And these fire worshippers were very well known, very well respected. They had a very, very big following. And the Buddha stayed just outside where the fire worshippers were. And the fire worshippers were a bit hesitant about the Buddha. They thought, oh, well, this looks like somebody who's very wise, but we don't really know what he teaches. So eventually they came around and asked the Buddha, could he give some teachings? And the Buddha, being very, very skillful, saw that they were fire worshippers. So he framed this teaching in using metaphors that they could actually understand. And he said that, he started off by saying, everything is burning. The world is aflame. And what's it aflame with? It's a flame with forms. It's a flame with the eye. It's a flame with consciousness. It's a flame with contact. It's a flame with feeling. And what is it? And what is this that's burning? What is this that's a flame? It's greed, hatred, and desire because of these things. And because of our greed, hatred, and desire of this, where it's like we're burning, we're on fire, and we're burning with old age, sickness, death, suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. So the Buddha outlined the dangers of actually attaching to these senses. So that's that can maybe seem a little bit heavy at times. The kind of thing is, everything's burning, the whole world's burning. I was just looking at a nice flower. I thought this was okay. It's all burning. Why is it all burning? It's not in a way. It's not like that. The problem, the reason the Buddha said that something like this was dangerous is because of that process of identification of, I like this thing or I don't like this thing. It's not that these things in themselves are inherently bad or inherently good or anything like that. It's just our relationship to it, and our kinds of attachment to these things. And this is what continually pulls us through the world in a sleepwalking manner. And we get all these senses coming in, and we're just getting pulled around by everything, and we're not recollecting, and we're not, being aware of these things. So that's the real problem there. It's not the problem that we have sensory input. The problem is we're craving for it and we're attaching to it. And so what do we do about this? What do I do when somebody, criticizes me for something that I didn't do, and I hear someone go, you did this job terrible, or what do you actually do there? How do you actually practice with the senses? And so the Buddha recommended in another very, very famous sutta in the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, where he talked about the how we keep our mindfulness in the present moment. He had a section where he talked about how we use he called it the sixth sense bases, how we use this to practice. He recommended that we have to notice this process that's actually happening at any one time. So, for example, again, the eye seeing with vision. So the eye seeing forms, and that there's a eye consciousness arising that's arising because of contact between the two, and that we're having some kind of feeling, a pleasurable, painful, or neither pleasant nor painful feeling arising because of it, and then there's a craving there. And because of this dependent process that we're attaching to this, and the Buddha recommended in the Four Foundations of Mindfulness Sutta is to notice the impermanence of this. Any sound or any sight that comes in, it's just something that comes and goes and comes and goes. And the more we can see something like this as impermanent, the less we'll attach to it, the less we'll become deluded by it, and we won't cling to it anymore. He also recommended in another sutta about these. It's called the Six Sextets Sutta, Chataka Sutta, I think. And he recommended that we should recollect again on this process and looking at it and investigating. Well, say for example, this sound that I'm hearing, is this sound me, or this person that's hearing? Am I the one hearing? Constantly recollecting on this craving I'm having, this feeling I'm having. Is this me? Is this mine? Is this myself? And we can see when we look at this process that there is no owner to that. This is just a process that's happening. This is just something that's randomly happening, causes and conditions coming together, and we're having this kind of experience. So that's, once again, that's all good, but how do you do that? That's not so easy. You're bombarded by so many different things at so many different times. So how do you actually practice with something like this? So while it's really hard to separate all this out, because it can be like a tidal wave of overwhelming sensory input. One good thing that I like to practice with when I'm sort of moving through the world and moving through different situations and having to deal with things is just putting my attention just on one of the what we call the sense doors. And one thing I found that myself and a lot of people have found quite helpful and quite easy is paying attention to sounds. You can, whatever you're doing, moving throughout the world, you just put your awareness and your mindfulness on the ear and on sounds that are coming in contact with the ear. And you can start to notice this process. It's like, there's a vibration of air, and it's hitting this place here that's my ear, and I'm becoming aware of it. There's a consciousness of it because my ears come in contact with this movement with this vibration, and this vibration, whatever it is, it's a bird. I like this thing. Oh, this is great, and birds are awesome. But then a car alarm goes off. Oh, I don't like that so much. You can notice the feeling that arises because of that. Notice the feeling that arises because of that sound. And again, once you notice, car alarms are annoying. You can start to notice. You start to crave for that or attach to it. You want it a different way. I want the car alarm to stop. I want the birds to keep singing, or whatever it is. So keep your awareness just on one aspect there, say for example the ear, and just notice that this is an impersonal process. You can't choose what you hear. You're sitting here listening to me now. You can't choose the next thing that comes out of my mouth. Like you might want to, but you just can't. And you sit here and you hear things. You hear cars going by. You can't choose what you're actually hearing. This is just a very impersonal process. So you can just do that as you move throughout the world. Keep your awareness just with one of the sense doors, and just see this process that's happening. And then when you become a little bit more proficient at that, then you can do other ones. You can maybe use your vision, or smells and all these kinds of things, or even just the feelings of the body moving through space and what's happening. You find one that you find it easy to keep your attention on at most times, and just watch this process that's happening. So with that's probably all I can really say on it. So just to maybe summarize, is that we don't have much time to do practice as compared with moving through the rest of the world. We might only get half an hour or something to actually sit and meditate and do some kind of practice, but we have the rest of the day to interact with the world. And so we shouldn't be wasting this time and just being pulled around by the world. We should be using this as a time to practice meditation and mindfulness, and using this to practice the Dhamma. And our experience of the world is what we always have with us. And really, this is the only thing that we always have with us, and that's made up of the sensory inputs that we're experiencing. And if you can notice this process that the Buddha was talking about, how that's occurring and unfolding, and you can recollect on it that this isn't me, this isn't mine, this isn't myself. If you can do this more and more regularly, you can start to see through the tricks. You can start to see the tricks of the senses. As I said, with the modern understanding, we think we experience reality in a particular kind of way, but it's just this construct. You start to see through all these tricks of the world. You're not getting pulled along by it. So if we continue to practice in this way, then our Dhamma practice can continue to flourish and thrive, even though we may not be doing as much physical meditation, sitting with our eyes closed and crossing our legs for a period of time. So I encourage you to hopefully do this as a practice, use this, take these tools and use them. Hopefully what I've said here this morning, maybe it can be of benefit to you in some way. Maybe you can use it in some way. If you can, that's really good. I'm really happy with that. If you can use some of these teachings and gain more clarity, gain more understanding in your life, I'm really happy about that. It's something I can contribute back to the world, so I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with everyone that's come here today to listen to the Dhamma. It's quite encouraging to see all you here. And so if there is anything that you didn't get of what I said, or you don't agree with, that's it's fine. We can maybe we can open the floor and have a discussion about it now. If you want to challenge me on things, it's fine. It's cool. No, that's wrong. There's so many things I forget. I'm more than happy to take questions from people here, and also I think online as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
No problem.
I just had a question on what you mentioned about, clinging and craving. One of the difficulties I'm having personally in my practice at the moment is, wanting to aspire towards these things like jhana or, those meditative absorptions, but, also listening to the advice of people like Ajahn Brahm or Brahmali, that wanting jhana is kind of like antecedent to it. So, I'm wondering how to approach a practice where you kind of have these aspirations or goals, I suppose, but, the wanting of those goals is counterproductive. Like, how do I approach that?
So, yeah, it's so counterintuitive that, okay, I want to develop wholesome states in the mind, so you have to have that desire to do it in some kind of way. But that desire actually is the thing that really gets in the way the most, because you sit there, and it's like, okay, I'm going to man, I want some jhana. This and jhana would be awesome, you know, and you spend most of your time thinking about wanting jhana, or you spend most of your time thinking about why aren't I in jhana? I'm doing this practice for so long. So it's so counterintuitive, and so the thing that I usually recommend is like what you really have to think about is not the results, but think about the causes that you're putting in. If you want these very calm mind states, there's no use thinking about the results all the time. What you have to think about is the causes. What am I doing? What kind of causes am I doing to get these results? And you focus on the causes, and what will be the causes of something like that is to do as much meditation as possible, and while you're doing said meditation is to watch your breath. That's the cause. That's what you have to focus on. And you have to try to let go of the results, what you'll get out of this thing, because it's just natural for us. We do something, we invest in something, we want to get something out of it. It's a total natural inclination. But what you have to do is not worry about the results so much, just worry about the causes, putting in the right kinds of causes for these things, and then eventually the results will come if you're putting in the right kinds of causes.
So basically like allowing the results to unfold naturally.
Yeah. And obviously you do have to have, in some respects, you do have to have that wholesome desire to actually practice. You have to go, well, I could sit on the couch and eat like chips, or I could meditate. So you do have to have that wholesome desire there. So you do have to balance that as well, and know some of these things that are leading you in the actions that you're performing, leading you in the right direction with that. But really, to get these kinds of peaceful states, you just have to focus on the causes, because you can cause yourself a lot of suffering if you're continually wanting your mind to be a way that it isn't. It can be terrible. I know myself in my first few years as a monk, I'd gone to Thailand, gave it all up. It's thrown all my money away, put these clothes on, and gone to another country, and I've given everything away. It's like, and I'm going to be enlightened. And it's like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in a cave. I'll never ever talk to anybody again. I'll be in the bliss of jhana, and birds will be landing on my shoulders, and this will be awesome. And yeah, it wasn't like that. I was sitting and so, why am I still suffering so much? I was pushing against it so hard, pushing against wanting my mind to be a different way than what it actually was. I was pushing so hard against the world being a way that, pushing so hard against the world being a way that I didn't want it to be. And that was just making me suffer a lot more. And it was through learning to, instead of trying to control everything, it's just learning to let it go, putting in the right kinds of causes, and then eventually the right results come. But if you're worried about the results and worried about why my mind isn't a particular kind of way, you're going to cause yourself more and more suffering. And a lot of people out in the world, they're suffering a lot, but you can suffer quite a lot if you just like sit in an empty room and you got nothing to worry about. People are bringing you food, and you can suffer quite a lot because you want things to be a different way. So whatever situation you're in, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is the way that you're relating to that situation and the kinds of causes that you're putting in. So,
Thank you so
does
much.
that answer the question?
Yeah, very much so. Thank
Cool. Could I get a drink of water? Is that all right? Can I just get a drink of water?
Yes.
Questions? Yeah?
That extension to that question. There was a sutta, there was a dialogue between Venerable Anuruddha and Venerable Sariputta. So one day, Venerable Anuruddha approaches Venerable Sariputta and says, I am such and such, I have been such a good practitioner, I have done this, I can do this, but I have not achieved Nibbana, Sajjata state. So when Sariputta says that you think of your achievements, your things that you can do, that's conceit in you. That when you are worried that you haven't achieved what you want to achieve, there's remorse in you. So he says, let go of both these things. Just reflect on the latter state. So coming to that question of desire, just underline that desire, just underline that. Then another thought comes, have I achieved it? Conceit. I have achieved it. Something. I have not achieved it. Remorse. So you have to let go that I have got this, I haven't got this.
Yep.
So when you get rid of that, that is the thing that obstructs the achievement, rather than the desire itself. Rather than the desire itself, the thought that comes just underneath that. I have achieved it, I have not achieved it. That is the thing that obstructs this progress.
Yeah. You know, Ajahn Chah actually would comment on something similar to that. Obviously, a lot of people would come to see Ajahn Chah and ask, "Oh, are you enlightened?" Or, you know, have you seen the Dharma? And maybe other people would come to him and say to him, "Oh, my meditation, it's like this. I must be enlightened. I must be at the first stage of enlightenment or the second stage of enlightenment." And Ajahn Chah would always say to them, you know, what you think you are or what you don't think you are, this isn't sure. You know, whether Ajahn Chah himself is enlightened or he's not enlightened, this isn't sure. And so he said, if he basically said is like, anybody that thinks that they're enlightened in some way, that's the most unsure thing. You don't know it all. So it's identifying with these things and making it out to be something. You know, we can't be sure that that's actually the way it is. You know, a lot of us, our practice isn't quite that good yet, and we don't really know if with the states that we're having, whether that's an actual accurate representation of the state that you're having. It was like I said before about how we interpret the world, and the way we interpret the world is shaped by our own experience and environment and all these kinds of things. So you can't be sure that what your experience is exactly that. So this is a good recollection that Ajahn Chah would talk about is whatever you experience, it's not sure. Whatever I'm sitting here, my mind's calm, it's peaceful. Oh, I must be getting jhana. I've got this down. Like it's not sure. It's not sure. Or I'm sitting here, my mind's all over the place. I'm angry, and this person said this, and it's bad. Blah, blah, blah. It's not sure. Or you think, I'm so worried about something, or I'm this kind of person, or I'm that kind of person, that these other people will perceive me in this way. It's not sure. It's always not sure. So if you can use that as a reflection all the time, then moving through the world and moving through these different states, it becomes a lot easier. And you don't become attached as much to, I'm somebody that's a Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahat, or anything like that, or whether I'm enlightened or I'm not. You don't attach to these things because you just know that it's all uncertain, that it's all unsure, that it's not sure. It's a simple but a very, very powerful teaching to have. I thought I had samadhi so many times, and then it's gone. Thought, I've worked this practice thing out. I've nailed it. No sliding back for me. And then, sure enough, next week it's back to normal. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Ajahn Brahmali, who's been here conducting the retreat, makes a lot for us of our daily practice of kindness. You're talking about causes and conditions, and the importance of that, or those, and possibly too, for one of us who's come as a Westerner, my knowledge of the suttas isn't as good as I'd like, that these kinds of causes and conditions are very important.
For sure, yeah. And that's again, that's about focusing on the right kinds of causes as well, and putting in the right kinds of causes. We can, again, back to Anzac Day, all of us, especially as a Buddhist, we want the world to be at peace. We don't want any wars. We don't want people, killing and maiming and bombing each other. But we have to put in the right causes for that, and we can let that go and go. Well, that's up to the government. That's the government. That's the government of Australia's problem. That's the American government's problem. This is Saudi Arabia's problem. That's not focusing on the right kinds of causes. You have to focus on the causes in your own life of what you're doing with something like this. You have to be putting in the causes to be kind to other people. You have to be focusing on these causes to develop these kinds of mind states, trying to recollect and reflect and spread metta and kindness as much as you can. You're the cause of all this. It's not this homogeneous thing that's outside ourselves. You're the thing that's moving throughout the world, and you're the thing that has to be developing kindness and compassion towards others. And it starts very simply. It just starts with kindness towards yourself, having kindness and forgiving yourself, and then forgiving the other people around you, people in your family, maybe somebody that's wronged you, or being grateful and being grateful for people that have helped you. And moving that out and having that effect on the world. These are the kinds of things that you can do to bring about peace in the world. You can't just go, if America wasn't so stupid, they wouldn't go to war, and I've got nothing to do. No, you can't look at it in that way. It's like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to foster peace in the world? What can I do to foster happiness in the world? How can my actions, how can my speech, how can my thoughts, how can that actually help the world? Because this is the thing that you do have some agency over. I'd love to be able to, I'd love to be able to tell North Korea that they shouldn't be doing that to their population, but I can't. But what I can do is move throughout the world and be kind to other people. And so that really is the thing, focusing on the causes of kindness to others. It's not something that we should be externalizing and wishing that everybody else would do. It's actually something that we should be doing ourselves. And if you can do it yourself, you're going to bump into many other people in the world. Some people are very receptive of that. This person showed me kindness, so I'll be kind back to them, or I'll be kind to the next person. And that can radiate out through society. And you're gonna have this intention to be kind and metta and all these kinds of things and be peaceful and happy with everyone. And then somebody's going to not accept it. You're brainwashed. You're this. You're that. They'll push back against you. And even though you are kind to them, they won't accept that. And that's You just have to accept that okay, that's fine. This person is suffering at that point in time. This person is, because they can't receive kindness, they must be going through some great suffering. So you just have to be kind and you have to be compassionate and keep trying to do it with them. But there's overall, there'll be more people that are receptive of your kindness and those that just go, well, I don't want your kindness. You might get 1 out of 100 like that, but that shouldn't be a deterrent. You should be trying to actually put in as many good causes as you can with as many different kinds of people as you can, and then eventually that's going to ripple out further and further into society. And so it starts with yourself. So even if you do, even if somebody throws an egg at you, it's fine. You can clean the egg off. Get it off. It's fine. It's not a big deal. So most of us, when we are kind to someone and they don't reciprocate that, then we become discouraged as, I don't want to be kind, or I'm worried about being kind to people. But the payoff for being kind and compassionate, this is much, much more than actually just, not doing it. And the consequences the consequences of not doing it are major. As I said, we want peace. We want peace and no war in the world. That's the consequences of people not being kind and compassionate to each other. That's the consequences of each individual coming together and not being kind and compassionate to each other. That's the consequences of people looking out at somebody else and going, well, you're the enemy. That's the consequences of you not being kind and compassionate. So you have to take on that responsibility of changing the world in that way by changing your own action and changing your own causes and changing how you're interacting with other people. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. I work in the school environment. I often have students witness how they have been bullied, ridiculed in the playground. And as a teacher, what kind of simple words can I, from Buddhist point of view, to tell Year 7, Year 10 students how they can think so they can keep still kind and being, another part is not to identify with the comments they've received being ridiculed.
So do you mean the bullier or the bullyee?
The one who are being bullied, victimized.
Yeah.
Say if they say, well, you are ugly.
Yeah.
So how can these Year 7 kids think that they are not ugly?
Yeah,
not identify from that comment. A simple way.
Yeah.
Because they are so vulnerable and they just taking every comments from their peers. So from Buddhist point of view, how do you tell them to shift?
It's such a complex problem. There's so many different things of a way, things that the kids are getting bullied about, things about the way that the kids are kind of reacting, the different kinds of the social structures that are around them. So it is really complex. So there's unfortunately no like one answer to how to make these kids feel better about themselves if they've been bullied. But what you can do from this Buddhist perspective is to try to get them to understand that everything that they experience is impermanent. You know, words are impermanent, actions are impermanent. These things come and go. It was like I was saying before with something like sound. It's just sound. It's something that comes and then it goes. So if they can try to see the impermanence of this, and it might be very, very hard for them, but think it's like, well, maybe in a year or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, this will all be over. This will all be over, and you just try to keep your mind in this point of things always change, everything changes, everything continually changes, and this person that's bullying you, they might. It might seem like they have a lot of power now, or there's all these other people that are caving in on you. They might seem like they have a lot of power over you now, but maybe that's not always going to be like that. Things are going to change, and that they just have to be patient. Unfortunately, you can't control the world. You just have to be patient with what's happening, and if they can be patient with it, and not react to it so much, and that's very hard to say. It's hard to say don't react to something, is when you just naturally do. If you're in Year 7 to Year 10, you're still not emotionally developed enough to actually have, or not. Some are emotionally developed enough to deal with these kinds of things, but it's a lot harder. You haven't had as much experience with people doing these things to you. So to just say, just accept it, you just have to accept it. That's a bit too simple, and it's also a little bit potentially not going to go down so well. But if you can get them to try to reflect and recollect that this is not something, it's not always going to be like this. It'll change. It will change. it has to change. It won't always be like this. You won't always feel bad. You know, at some point you're going to change. You're going to be happy again. These things that these people say, it might not. It's likely not even the truth. You know, it's going to change. They're going to be seen. They'll be found out for, you know, spreading rumors and all these kinds of things. Everything will change. Everything will just continue to change. So, you know, hopefully that can be a good reflection. But there's so many other things that you can do as well. But that's just that's sort of the generalized advice I'd give for something like that.
Yep. Thank you, Ajahn.
No problem.
Can we take some online questions?
Yeah.
Hi, Ajahn. There are 3 questions. The first question is the idea that the ego mind does not have intelligence and that it is simply a conditioned reflex?
That it doesn't have intelligence. Could you just repeat it again for me, please?
Yep. Is the idea that the ego mind does not have intelligence and that it is simply a conditioned reflex?
Oh, okay. I think I understand that. So your intelligence is something that's contingent on many other factors as well. It's contingent on your social upbringing, your genetics, all these different kinds of things. So you as a person don't control how intelligent you are. You know, you can work on these things. You can if you're trying to study or something like that, you can work hard on it. But you do have a parameter on how intelligent you can actually be, and this is something that is caused by all these different factors that have come up in the world. So, how intelligent you are, it's not something that you are or you control. It is something that is causally dependent on all these other factors. So, is intelligence just part of that, a causally dependent factor? Yeah, it is as well. And it's not really something that you can, while I'd like to be, like, I'd love to have an IQ of like 180. I don't. I don't have an IQ that high. I'd love to understand like astrophysics in a better way. I just don't. I can't. I've tried. Like it's just not working. So there are limits on your intelligence which are determined by how you're actually made up as well. But that's not to say that you just become defeated and, okay, well, this is how smart I am and I don't care. Yeah, you keep learning and keep trying to put in the good causes. If you want more intelligent, put in the good causes to become more intelligent. You know, you can spend more of your time reading and things like that, and you can still do those things. So, yeah, hopefully I understood the question, and hopefully that answers the question to some extent. Yeah.
Can I add to that, Ajahn?
Yeah.
I think the question is...
Do you want to go to the microphone so that people can hear?
Sorry.
Do you want to go up to the mic?
Yeah, it's okay. I think the question is the primary beginning first word is conceit. It sounds like the way I would interpret the question is conceit has its own intelligence, or is this a reflection of some other causes upbringing of value? So in other words, is conceit something that has its own intelligence to decide things, or is it a reflection of your own values and values and something like that?
I'd say there's a confluence of both those things. You know, you're putting in the kinds of conceit or the ego that you actually have. That's one that's bounded up by your own. That's bounded up by your own karma, and so it's automatically being influenced by that. But then your reaction to that as well, the karma that you're making on top of that, that's moving it and shaping it in a particular kind of way. So it's that impersonal nature of your own past karma, of your own habitual responses, your own factors of personality that you actually have due to your own karma, but then also the karma that you're making in the present of how you're reacting to this conceit, or you're reacting to this ego, and the more causes that you're putting in, how you're reacting to that will shape it later, will shape how your conceit evolves later. And then in the next instance, when the ego and the conceit comes up, then that's caused by everything that you've done, but it was also caused by your action back here. So again, you're reacting to it, you're acting on it, you're making new karma. It's building it again in another way. So at any one moment with these things, it is dependent on the karma that you've made, but it's also dependent on, or will be later dependent on the kind of action and karma that you make on it now. Hopefully we answered your question.
Thank you, Ajahn. The next question is the ego just a storyteller?
Wouldn't say it's just a storyteller, but it can be, yeah. It's we have an interpretation. Our ego has an interpretation of how our life has been. We have this sort of narrative story of, this was me when I was born. I was a little baby. I was Kevin. I grew up here, and I did this, and I did this, and this, and this, and this. And you have that narrative story of your life, and there is that aspect. That is one aspect of it. But then you also have the storytelling ego of now, of what you're telling yourself about what your situation is. It's like, if I do this, my life will go this way, or this thing that happened to me then, this is how I interpret it now. So there is a storytelling aspect to it, but I wouldn't say that that's the only part of it. It's there's so many other things that are involved in the development of the ego. You can just the way you respond to things, your different thoughts about these things, how you're interacting in the world. There's so many things that build up the ego, and it's not just the storytelling aspect of it, but it is definitely one aspect of it.
Thank you, Ajahn. And for the last question, if we identify with ourselves as the six senses, the ego self, yet the ego self has no substance, then behind that must be the formless emptiness?
Must be, yeah. People that have time to sit down and write their questions out is more thought out. And that's really, from my understanding of what the Buddha is talking about when he's talking about the emptiness of self, is that what you think is from the six senses, the sight, sounds, taste, touch, smell, and the thoughts that are coming in. We usually think one of these is me. This is me that's experiencing this. But the Buddha, the way the Buddha said is there's no self to be found in any one of those things. So that's how our experience of the world is empty of a self. It's something that we're attaching to and identifying on top of these six senses. So if you can notice that, and if you can see that, then you're a bit closer to experiencing that emptiness of existence. You're a little bit closer to it, but it's probably something that comes and goes a lot. It's I've seen this thing, and there's no me here that's experiencing this. Great. And then you're just back into it again. Then you're back and you're wrapped up with the ego, you're wrapped up with the sense of self. And so inherently, the six sense bases that we have, each one of these, there is no self to be found in it. So there is no self, there is not self there underneath it. But it's something that it's going to fluctuate. You're going to get lost between it. You can't just sort of walk around and go, everything's not self, so I can run through the wall or something. You can't do that. It's going to hurt. So it's good to be recollecting on these and reflecting on these things, but then also, okay, well, if my hand's not self, I can't just like dip it into a hot pot of water. Like you still have to move throughout the world. You still have to, interact and actually like look after your body, look after the senses, look after all these things. So, but it's just identifying with this experience, identifying that it's me here that's doing this. That's what you're trying to do. And if you can do that, then you can start to begin to, understand the emptiness of self. Any questions here, or is there somebody furiously typing again online again? That's it? Okay, cool. Yeah. What time do we finish up again? 10:30. Okay, so 15 minutes. I think I'll ramble on if you want. Don't know how enjoyable you're finding my ramblings, but yeah. No. So this is. I'll just go back to the 6 sense spaces. This is something we can practice. This is something we can actually try to do, because each one of us has the ability to do this, because you are experiencing something in the world, and it's the reason that I like to do it so much is because most of my time is spent interacting with the world. There's only so many hours in the day where you can actually sit down and meditate and sit down and be quiet. But a lot of the time is spent interacting with the world. So it's a good practice to actually to be developing. And if you can do this, and the times where you do go back and you do go back to your actual meditation, makes it a lot easier when you get there. If you're continually trying to practice throughout the day and you're using these techniques to practice throughout the day, when you do go back to sit down and actually develop some calm in the mind, it is a little bit easier because you've been strengthening your mindfulness throughout the day. And it's because you're building up that strength there, that when if you're building up that strength throughout the day of trying to be mindful of the senses, then when you do sit meditation, your mindfulness is stronger because it's had more of a workout. It's like somebody that walks all day. This person walks all day, so they're relatively strong in this area. They're physically healthy, they're physically well. But when they do have to, the person that walks all day, when they do have to run, it's not as hard for them. But if somebody just sits on the couch all day and eats chips, if they have to get up and run, it's a lot harder for them. So it's like that with your meditation practice as well. If you continually train in it, the more you can train in it, when you do, if you can do this throughout the day, when you do eventually sit down, you're stronger. You've got more of a capacity there to make the mind stiller and make the mind more calm. So, I encourage you to try to do it, because I guess something that's pretty popular at the moment is mindfulness, and we have most mindfulness is taught in this way of just be open and receptive to everything. Just see everything come and go, and there's nothing wrong with that for sure. But there's a lot there that's coming and going. Our thoughts are molded in with what we're seeing, and the sounds that are coming in. Everything's overlapping and integrating, and it becomes this one amorphous hub of our experiences. Well, how do I just let all this go when there's so much going on? And that's why, actually, if you can just pick one of these things and develop that skill with one, as I said, for example, hearing, use that, then it becomes easier to do it with the other ones. You can start to, I've got the hearing side of it down, that's great. Okay, let's think about the touch. Okay, there's the touch of my the touch of my leg against the seat. You can see that. You can see that arise and pass away a little better. All the things that you see, you can see how that changes. You can see that it's just that what you're experiencing is just light in a particular kind of waveform coming in contact with your eyes, and this is building up this perception of the world. And you can see that in more detail, and you can do that with all things. And actually, like a really good one to do is it's for me it's fun, but I don't know if for anybody else it's fun. But when you're actually sitting meditation, one thing you can do is and watching the breath. You can actually be aware of any smells, because we're not usually so conscious of smells unless we're in a restaurant or something, or it's something innately disgusting in front of us kind of thing. So it's actually good to sit there and watch the breath. You just keep your awareness on the breath, but then also notice the smells that are coming. And in any place that you are, in any room that you're in, there's so many smells in the environment, but you're usually just not aware of them at all. You think now, you might think, I don't smell anything. It's like, pay attention to it. If you do pay attention to it, it's like, yeah, there's different smells. There's different smells there, but if your awareness isn't as attuned to it. Whereas if you went into a restaurant or something that is overpowering smells, you become more attuned to it. But any situation that you're in, you can put your attention on the nose and the smells by watching the breath and actually noticing some of the smells. So that's a good one to do as well. So, but it comes about through like training in one of them, just to start with, and developing the habit, developing the skill there, and then moving on to the other ones. So, yeah.
Ajahn,
Yeah.
There's a question
Okay.
online. As I learn about Buddhism, how can I be resilient to praise and blame with regard to my learning?
With regard to the learning, or just in general?
With regard to my learning.
Okay. Praise and blame, at least what I'm getting out of that is maybe like somebody that's a student, they're trying to learn something, and they potentially you get a good grade or you don't get a good grade, and you get praise for a good grade, or you don't get praise, you get blamed for a bad grade or something like that. Is if that's the way I'm interpreting it, well, it's in terms of your learning, it's the same as with everything else. In terms of your learning or in terms of your school or something, it's the same with anything else. You have to, again, just be putting in the right kinds of causes. Whatever you're trying to learn, you're putting in the right kinds of causes, and the results that you get from that are just whatever results you get. So what you do is you focus on what you can control in the situation, and that's how much study and all these kinds of things that you do. But the results you get, you don't know what kind of results you're actually going to get from that. And again, what I was talking about before is if you get somebody that praises you or get somebody that blames you for either the schoolwork or even just anything else, or in their job or in something that you're looking at and you're trying to understand, and people praise you or blame you. Oh yeah, you're great, you understand this. Or no, you're stupid, you don't understand this. Again, just see this as something that arises and passes away in the world. Praise, anybody that praises you, it's just sound that's coming in contact with the ears. It's something that arises and passes away. Any blame, anybody that says that, that's a bad grade, you're terrible, that's just something that arises and passes away. If you can see this more as just for what it is, it's just phenomena that you're coming in contact with. It's just something that's always changing, that's always coming and going. And you don't attach to it as much. So if somebody says to you, it's like, oh, you're, like Ajahn Sādaro, you gave a great talk today. I'm like, oh, that's great. But if somebody says, Ajahn Sādaro, that was a terrible talk. Yeah, fine, it's just words. So if you can be equanimous in this way of whatever you're coming in contact with. If somebody says you're great, no, it's not sure. If somebody says you're terrible, it's not sure. It's easy to say you're not sure when somebody says you're terrible, but it's But so if you have that kind of mindset of, whatever happens, it's not sure. Whatever I'm coming in contact with, this is just impermanent. This is something that comes and goes. But the more you try to say, what this person said, it's right, no, I am bad, it's blah, 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 you're going to have more suffering. Or the more you listen to somebody that says, wow, you're a genius, you're so smart, and it's like, yeah, I'm smart, I know all this stuff, I'm a legend. You're gonna have a different kind of suffering and a different kind of delusion because of that. So it's seeing both these things that they actually have equal worth. Praise is just the same as blame. It's like two sides of the one coin. All it is sound that's coming in. All it is a mark on a paper. It's the way that you're reacting to it. That's the most important thing. So you just try to whatever comes in contact. It's good. It's bad. Just let it go. So I have a question.
Thank you, Ajahn, for your words of wisdom. So I do have a question, and that's, what would be the difference of letting go and not caring? And just to give a little bit of context, so I've just closed my business after about 4 to 5 years, and I'm not feeling any strong emotions, even though I put in quite a lot of effort during this period of time. So how do I know in my mind whether or not it's really letting go, or it's just not caring, just pushing it aside?
Well, when you just push something aside, there's a negative. If you notice how you react to it, if you're just pushing something, there's a negative reaction to that. You don't feel. You still feel. There's a kind of negativity there. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. There's that kind of negativity, there's that kind of reactive mind state that you actually do have there. And what you're doing at that point is you're trying to push something down. You're trying to push something down and ignore it in a way. Or you're trying to justify yourself and push this thing away. So there's a negative feeling, a negative reaction there. If you let something go, there's a positive feeling there. You feel light. You feel spacious. You feel free. So that's really the needle between those two things. If you letting something go, it should bring about these kinds of free and joyous and spacious and happy mind states. But if you're pushing something away, it's going to bring about negative mind states. So you have to be really honest with yourself. A lot of the times you push something away. It's like, I don't care about what this person said. I don't care about this. I'm doing great. I'm happy. You have to be honest with yourself as well and really see, am I really happy pushing this thing away? And if you are honest with yourself, and it's like, actually, no, there's some sort of resistance there. I'm trying to push this thing away. If you accept that, then you can actually deal with it. Then you can actually, okay, I'm pushing this thing away, but somehow at some deeper level, I'm feeling really bad. So accept that and deal with it, and then you actually learn to deal with it. And then you will, if you learn to deal with it, then actually you'll be able to let go. And then you'll actually be able to see, okay, I'll just let this thing go now. I feel free, I feel happy. And it's not this kind of talking yourself into it and pushing it away. So it's something you have to be very honest with yourself and just understand exactly how you're feeling towards the situation. If it's negative, you're pushing it away. If it's positive, you have actually let it go. Yeah. So with that, it's pretty much 10:30 now, so might close out. Usually, Arahant? Yeah. So we'll close out by paying respects to the Triple Gem, and just, will you make it announcements as well, or?
I think the announcement will be made.
Yeah.
Do we need an announcement to make? Just please join us for lunch next.
Yeah, and again, thank you all for coming this morning. It's really great to see so many of you. Thanks to everybody that's come to listen to the Dhamma. Thanks to everybody that's helped out. And yeah, so hopefully I'll see you all again soon. So we'll pay respects to the Triple Gem. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sankho Sanghang Namami. Okay. Very good. Again, invite you all to come over and have some lunch soon.